Hey Storytime African family, today's story is one that hits deep. It's about a young man whose heart was slowly eaten by envy. It's set in the beating heart of Lagos, Nigeria, and trust me, you're gonna feel this one. As you listen, let me know in the comments, have you ever felt the silent sting of jealousy? Or maybe someone envied you and it broke your friendship. Let's get into it. Grab your tea, sit back, and listen close. Once upon a modern time, in the loud, never sleeping streets of Lagos, two young men lived in the same compound. Let's call them Tiga and Whale. They were not brothers by blood, but life had raised them like twins. From the age of 6, they'd been side by side, chasing tires through puddles, dodging okada's on narrow streets, and sneaking into Mama Gechi's kiosk for chin when no one was looking. The dusty field down the road was their stadium. Their kitchen was any neighbor willing to share, and their dreams. Oh, their dreams were bigger than Lagos traffic. Tiga, the quieter of the two, always seemed to be watching, thinking, like his eyes were two CCTV cameras, capturing everything. His mind was a vault. If you asked him about anything, how to fix a broken phone screen, how much Danfo drivers make in a day, or the best time to sneak past the landlord, Tiga knew. He was the planner, the thinker, the one who read self-help books from Yoba Market and believed in his strategy. Well, now that one had a mouth that could sell ice to an Eskimo. Flashy, loud, always dressed like he had money even when he didn't. His white sneakers were always clean, and his cologne. You'd smell it before you saw him. People liked Whale. Market women gave him extra meat in his stew. Mechanics gave him discounts. Even LASMA officers would wave him off with a smile sometimes. He had that Lagos charm, the type that gets you into rooms you have no business being in. They had one shared dream, to leave poverty behind. Whether it was through music, tech, or the next business idea, they believed they would make it. Together. Always together. But as they grew older, life started to test their brotherhood. Opportunities didn't come equally. While Tiga saved every kobo he made fixing phones and hustling online gigs, Whale's connections started to open doors. He got invited to events, rubbed shoulders with influencers, even appeared on a vlog that went viral. Brands started calling. Suddenly, Whale was talking big, photo shoots, interviews, sponsorship deals. At first, Tiga clapped for him. He helped him draft emails, reminded him of his appointments, even gave him money to buy new clothes for a gig. But slowly, the balance shifted. Whale had less time. He forgot plans. He stopped returning Tiga's messages. And when he did reply, it was always rushed, like Tiga was now just one of the many people trying to reach him. Now, here's where the story begins to twist. One evening, as Tiga scrolled through his cracked phone screen, he stumbled on a post. Whale. Standing beside a brand new car. Caption, from trenches to triumph. Nobody helped me. Self-made all the way. Tiga stared at the words. His chest tight. His fingers froze. Nobody helped. The brother who wasn't born with him had just erased him. And that was the beginning of everything. After NYSC, both men struggled to find jobs. Lagos is no joke when you're broke. Every day felt like war, battling Danfo conductors, dodging Okada accidents, and calculating the cost of every plate of rice. They shared a tiny room in Ojulegba, with a fan that only worked when NEPA felt generous. Tiga, always the protector, took a night job as a security guard at a bank in Marina. The pay was peanuts, but it was better than sitting at home watching time pass like a slow-moving tanker on 3rd Mainland Bridge. Well, he found work at a laundry service, ironing agbadas and dry cleaning designer dresses he couldn't dream of affording. But Lagos had a funny way of picking favorites. One random Tuesday afternoon, under a grey sky heavy with rain, Wale's luck took an unexpected turn. A young woman had dropped off some clothes at the laundry, a mix of everyday wear and one particularly elegant, glittering designer dress. It looked like it belonged in a movie. Hours later, when Wale was locking up the shop, he noticed the dress still hanging by the steam press. She had forgotten it. Most people would have shrugged. It wasn't their business. But Wale couldn't. He remembered his mother's voice, "Character will take you where talent cannot." So, he grabbed the dress, wrapped it in a plastic bag, and ran. The rain poured like the heavens were mourning. His slippers slapped the wet concrete as he searched every nearby street. Finally, he saw her, about to enter a black SUV. "Excuse me. You forgot this," he yelled, breathless, drenched, heart pounding. She turned around, surprised. A soft smile spread across her face. Her name was Edeora, one of Lagos' most sought-after fashion designers. And she was stunned. "You ran through the rain just to return this?" she asked. "Yes, ma," he replied, shivering. "I couldn't let you lose it." She looked at him again, like she was seeing something others didn't. "Come see me tomorrow," she said. "I think I have a job for you." And that was the beginning. Not as a laundry boy, no. She offered him a role as her social media manager. He didn't even know what that really meant. He barely had a smartphone, let alone marketing experience. But Wale was hungry. Not just for food, but for change. So he learned. Fast. Faster than Lagos traffic at 3 a.m. when everyone's asleep. In just a few months, Wale was flying to Dubai, sipping mocktails by infinity pools, posting photos beside gold-plated toilets, and wearing sneakers that cost more than Tiga's monthly salary. People in their compound started calling him Influencer Wale. Kids followed him around. Aunties asked for business advice. His Instagram blew up. Brands came calling. And Tiga, still guarding the same bank at night. Still dragging himself into crowded malls with sweaty bodies pressed against his. Still watching his best friend live a life he once dreamt for them both. Still eating Gary. Only now, it tasted more like envy than just tears. That's when envy crept in. It wasn't loud. It didn't shout. It whispered. "Why not you, Tiga? You're smarter. You're more loyal. You suffered more." Every time Wale bought something new, a car, a watch, a new generator, Tiga felt it. Not pride. Not joy. But a deep green sickness in his belly. It didn't start all at once. At first, Tiga was genuinely happy for his friend. They had been through so much together, from childhood games to the hustle of adult life. Wale had always been there, pulling through when things got tough. They shared dreams, and when Wale achieved success, Tiga was one of the first to celebrate. But that was before things changed. As Wale's success grew, so did Tiga's feelings of inadequacy. It wasn't just the new things Wale bought, it was the way people admired him now. It was the attention, the praise. He was everywhere, shining brighter than Tiga ever had. And though Tiga never voiced it, he couldn't help but feel that it was supposed to be him. Why wasn't it him? And here's where it really gets real. Tiga found himself avoiding Wale's posts on social media. At first, it was just a few likes he didn't hit. But it soon grew into something deeper. He'd scroll past Wale's pictures without a second thought, ignoring the taglines about how successful and hardworking his friend was. Every time a mutual friend commented, "Bro, you're doing big things," Tiga felt a stab of bitterness. Whale, oblivious to the change, would text Tiga about meeting up, sharing his latest accomplishments, and asking for advice. But the words didn't hit the same anymore. They felt like reminders that Tiga wasn't living the life he had once imagined. Then the jealousy seeped in, subtle but steady. One day, Tiga found himself rolling his eyes when people called Whale bro. It was as if they were all blinded by his success, unable to see the person Tiga thought he knew beneath the polished exterior. And then, Tiga took it a step further. He started telling small lies. It wasn't anything too obvious, just little things, whispers in the right ears. You know, Whale's been following that woman around too much. Must be something shady going on. It wasn't true, but it didn't matter. The seed of doubt was planted, and that was enough. Guys, have you ever felt that silent bitterness toward someone close to you? That feeling of being left behind, even though you once shared the same path. That sting of envy when success comes to someone else. Drop a broken heart in the comments if you've ever experienced envy, either from your side or someone else's. Let's talk about it. One day, Tiga got a strange idea. What if, just what if, he could take Whale down a peg? Tiga had always been envious of Whale. While he struggled to make a name for himself, Whale seemed to be living a charmed life, gaining fame for his digital marketing company and rubbing elbows with powerful figures in the city. Tiga had often felt overshadowed by Whale's success, watching from the sidelines as his friend climbed higher and higher. It ate at him. Why did Whale deserve all the praise? Tiga had just as much potential, he just needed his break. But in his mind, Whale was always one step ahead. That afternoon, Tiga found Whale's laptop left unattended in the compound. He had just come out to take a quick break from work, leaving the device on the table as he chatted with someone on the phone. Tiga couldn't resist the temptation. The thought of getting even with Whale was too enticing. Curiosity, or maybe jealousy, drove him. He glanced around, ensuring no one was looking, and then cautiously sat down. He opened the laptop. There were emails, social media drafts, spreadsheets, and photos from various business meetings. Tiga quickly scrolled through the folders, heart racing. He felt like a thief in the night, but the thrill was undeniable. Maybe this was his chance to find something that could finally bring Whale down. And then, he saw it. An invoice. A payment from a controversial politician's campaign, paying Whale's company for a digital cleanup. Tiga's breath caught in his throat. He didn't fully understand the details of the payment, but it was clear that it was highly questionable. Why would Whale, a young and supposedly ethical entrepreneur, work for someone like that? The politician had been in the news recently, caught up in corruption scandals, and was widely despised by the public. Tiga paused, looking at the screen, his fingers hovering over the keyboard. He could feel the weight of the moment. He had the perfect opportunity. What if he exposed Whale for working with such a figure? It could destroy his reputation and tear down everything he had worked for. Whale would never see it coming. With a burst of reckless energy, Tiga took a screenshot of the email and saved it. He thought about it for only a moment longer before his fingers moved, anonymously leaking the email online. The more he thought about it, the more justified he felt. Whale had always looked down on him, flaunting his success, and now it was time for a taste of humility. The message went viral almost immediately. Social media exploded. People shared the post, speculating about Whale's connection to the politician. The backlash was swift and brutal. Comments flooded in, calling Whale corrupt, a sellout. His reputation, which he had carefully built over the years, started to crumble. Tiga watched it unfold with a mixture of excitement and guilt, but he couldn't stop himself. The world was finally seeing Whale for who he truly was, at least, that's what Tigger believed. But as the days passed, and the public outcry grew louder, Tigger began to realize the gravity of what he had done. He had crossed a line that couldn't be undone. He had unleashed a storm on Whale's life, and in doing so, he had revealed more about his own character than he could have ever imagined. Within hours, Whale's name was trending, but for the wrong reasons. It didn't take long for the backlash to spiral out of control. Social media platforms exploded with outrage, with hashtags like #WhaleTheFraud and #laundering for the corrupt flooding timelines. His name, once associated with clean, sleek brand collaborations and influencer endorsements, was now a symbol of scandal. Rumors about him being a front for a corrupt politician's public relations scheme circulated like wildfire. The first to pull out was the high-end fashion designer who had recently collaborated with him on a capsule collection. The Instagram post was quickly deleted, and a statement went live, stating that they would no longer work with anyone whose reputation could potentially tarnish their brand. Whale's other sponsors followed suit, one by one, each severing ties as if cutting off a toxic limb. What hurt the most wasn't losing the deals, though the financial setback was massive. No, what stung was how quickly his followers turned on him. Like a generator sputtering to life after a sudden NEPA blackout, they began to distance themselves, leaving hurtful comments and unsubscribing from his accounts. He had built his entire identity on their admiration, and now they were turning their backs as quickly as they had embraced him. Whale retreated into his compound, hoping for a moment of respite. But instead of finding solace, he found himself engulfed in a storm of regret. His phone buzzed relentlessly, messages, calls, and notifications pouring in, some from people he once considered friends, others from strangers eager to gossip. He could feel the weight of each message, the expectation that he had to defend himself, to explain, to justify. But he couldn't. Not when he didn't fully understand what had happened himself. Days passed, and still, he remained silent, refusing to step outside. His phone was a constant reminder of the world he had lost. He sat in his room, the same room that used to be filled with the hum of activity, the steady flow of notifications, the buzzing of his social life. Now, it was just quiet. The quiet was deafening. The weight of isolation hung heavy in the air. The usual rhythm of Lagos nightlife, distant honks, the hum of music spilling from club doors, the chatter of people on the street, was a stark contrast to the stillness he felt inside. Tigger, a fellow influencer who had once praised Whale for his ambition and drive, had expected to feel triumphant. He thought he'd be glad to see the man who once looked down on him fall from grace. But no. The sight of Whale's crumbling empire only made Tigger uneasy. He didn't feel the victory he had anticipated. Instead, he felt a deep, uncomfortable sadness. Tigger had been part of the cycle, chasing fame, glory, validation, but he had never truly considered the cost. And now, as Whale's world caved in, Tigger realized just how fragile the facade of success could be. The lives they built, the reputations they cultivated, all could crumble with a single misstep. Whale had vanished into his silence, and Tigger could do nothing but watch, haunted by the emptiness that now filled the space between them. One night, Tigger had a dream. And this is where it gets spiritual. He was standing alone in the middle of Third Mainland Bridge. The usual hum of traffic was absent. No cars, no sounds of horns or engines. The bridge stretched far into the distance, vanishing into thick, swirling fog that blanketed the city. It was eerie, the kind of silence that made every breath feel too loud, as if the world had paused, holding its breath. Tigger stood motionless, feeling an odd weight in the air. The water below the bridge was still, a dark, glistening expanse, reflecting no light. It was as if time itself had been suspended, leaving him in a space outside of reality. He couldn't move, couldn't speak. It was a dream, but it felt so real, too real. Then, just as the tension became unbearable, a figure appeared in the fog. At first, Tigger thought it might be someone lost, but as the figure came into view, he recognized him. It was Whale, his old friend. But something was horribly wrong. Whale's once warm, brown eyes now glowed with a sickly green hue. The light wasn't bright, no, it was far worse than that. It was faint but sickly, like the green of decay, of something festering deep inside. His eyes had been overtaken by envy, the kind that can rot a soul from within. Tigger felt a chill run through him, the air growing heavier with each step Whale took toward him. Whale's face was twisted, no longer the familiar friend Tigger had known. His lips curled into a strange, almost sorrowful grin. There was no warmth in his gaze, only an emptiness that seemed to stretch into eternity. Whale's figure seemed to shimmer in the fog, an apparition made real by Tigger's mind, but his presence was undeniable. Tigger tried to speak, to call out to him, but his throat felt dry, paralyzed with fear. He couldn't utter a single word. It was as though the dream itself was suffocating him, trapping him in this moment with no escape. Whale stopped a few feet in front of him, his eyes never leaving Tigger's. And then, with a voice that seemed both distant and close at the same time, he spoke. "You didn't destroy me, Tigger. You destroyed yourself." The words hung in the air like a curse. Tigger's heart skipped a beat, his pulse thudding in his ears. The weight of those words crushed him, suffocating him in a way he couldn't explain. Whale's words weren't accusatory, they were cold, final, and haunting. There was a depth of truth in them, something Tigger couldn't shake, something gnawing at his insides. He tried to take a step back, but his legs wouldn't move. The fog seemed to close in tighter, suffocating him. Whale's figure began to fade into the mist, his words echoing through the silence of the bridge, sinking into Tigger's mind like poison. "You destroyed yourself," Whale repeated, his voice now a whisper lost in the distance. Suddenly, Tigger was jolted awake. His body was drenched in sweat, his heart racing like a drumbeat in his chest. He gasped for air, the shadows of the dream still clinging to him. The room felt small, stifling, as though the air itself had turned to lead. His body shook uncontrollably, his mind replaying Whale's words over and over, each time sinking deeper into his soul. Tigger lay there, wide-eyed in the dark, trembling. The dream had felt like a warning, a spiritual awakening. But of what? What had he truly destroyed? His heart continued to pound, and as the night stretched on, he realized he might never find peace until he understood what Whale had meant. The next morning, Tigger felt a strange urgency stirring in his chest. It was as if his heart had been bound by an invisible rope, pulling him towards something that he couldn't yet comprehend. He put on his worn sandals and left his modest home, walking with steady resolve. His feet carried him through the bustling streets of Lagos, dodging potholes, weaving between vendors shouting their wares, and passing the endless sea of faces, all living their own stories. He walked all the way to Yoba, to the corner of the market where the barber was known to sit under the shade of an ancient tree, offering wisdom to those who sought it. The barber's reputation was solidified by years of quiet counsel. He had lived through every imaginable hardship, seen both the joy and despair that accompanied the lives of countless people in this crowded city. Tigger, desperate for answers, knew that the barber might offer something no one else could, a way to break free from the suffocating jealousy that had been consuming him since Whale's sudden rise. When Tigger approached, the barber looked up from the small pile of kola nuts he had been arranging. His eyes, though aged, gleamed with a deep, knowing light. There was no judgment in them, only an invitation to speak. Tigger began, pouring out everything his feelings of betrayal, the weight of comparison, the resentment that gnawed at him whenever he thought of whale's success. The words spilled out faster than he could control them, all of the things he had been carrying inside for weeks now. The bobber listened, his expression calm and unreadable, until Tigger had no more to say. When Tigger finally fell silent, expecting some form of condemnation or a lengthy lecture, the old man simply chuckled softly. It wasn't a cruel laugh, but one that seemed to acknowledge a deeper truth. You think envy harms the one you aim it at? No, my son, the bobber said, his voice low and steady. Envy is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. Tigger blinked, confused. But, what does that mean? He asked, his voice shaky. The bobber nodded slowly, as if waiting for the weight of his words to sink in. Envy eats you from the inside, Tigger. It eats your peace, your joy, your ability to truly see yourself. It clouds your mind and closes your heart. You want to harm whale, but in the end, it's only you who suffer. You see, when you live in the shadow of someone else's light, you forget your own glow. Tigger stood there, taking in the bobber's words, the truth of them piercing his soul. For the first time, he understood that it wasn't whale who needed to be dealt with, but the bitterness he had been carrying. The bobber's advice was clear: find whale, my son. Go to him. Beg, not just with words, but with action. Show him the sincerity of your regret, the openness of your heart. Only then can you begin to heal. The journey ahead felt daunting, but something in Tigger stirred. The road to redemption wasn't one of pride, it was paved with humility and the courage to face the person he had hurt the most, himself. Weeks passed before Tigger found him, hiding out in a friend's boys' quarters in Ikeja. It was a quiet, dusty evening when Tigger's search finally brought him to the small compound. He had searched tirelessly for days, his mind a whirlwind of regret and confusion, trying to understand how things had gone so terribly wrong. The search had started as a desperate hope, a fleeting wish that maybe, just maybe, whale would be somewhere close, somewhere he could reach. When Tigger saw him, his heart sank. Whale looked thinner. His once confident, broad shoulders now sagged, and his eyes were dull, weighed down by more than just exhaustion. He had always been full of life, but now, it was like that life had been drained, leaving only traces of the man Tigger once knew. Tigger took a step forward, his feet heavy with the guilt that had been suffocating him since that night, the night his jealousy had clouded his better judgment. He had been consumed by his own insecurities, trying to prove himself worthy of everything whale had built. He had been foolish, thinking he could rush ahead of his friend, not realizing that the cost of that ambition would tear them apart. Tigger knelt before whale. The space between them felt infinite, yet the words he had carried for weeks stumbled out before he could stop them. Tigger, I didn't mean for it to happen this way. I was jealous, bro. I was lost. I didn't know it would go that far. His voice cracked, and the tears he had been fighting finally came. Real ones. The kind that didn't just sting but bled with regret. He hadn't just lost a friend, he had almost lost the person who had been his brother through it all. The one who had believed in him when no one else did. The one he had betrayed in the pursuit of his own selfish desires. Whale stood there, silent for a moment. He didn't shout. Didn't curse. His eyes, though tired, met Tigger's. There was a flicker of something in them, pain, maybe, but also a deep sadness. I thought we were building a future together, Whale said softly, his voice steady, though the weight of his words hung in the air like a thick fog. Tigger could feel the weight of those words, each one a reminder of how much he had lost by chasing his own fleeting dreams, blind to the value of the bond they had once shared. Whale had trusted him, had believed in their friendship. And Tigger had let that trust slip through his fingers like sand. Then, to his surprise, Whale stepped forward. No anger. No resentment. Just a calm, understanding acceptance. And, before Tiger could even process it, Whale pulled him into a hug. Just like that. Tiger broke down in his arms, his body trembling as years of frustration and regret poured out. In that hug, the envy melted away. The poison that had been festering in his soul faded, leaving only the raw ache of realization. In that moment, he knew he had been forgiven. Whale had chosen to heal, to mend what was broken between them. And, for the first time in weeks, Tiger felt the weight in his chest lighten. They stood there for what felt like an eternity, two old friends finally finding their way back to each other. Tiger and Whale didn't rush back to their old routine. It wasn't that simple. The scars of the past lingered, and trust wasn't something easily restored. They had both been through too much, had been hurt too deeply. But they knew one thing: if they truly wanted to move forward, they couldn't carry the weight of bitterness. It was a slow process, one that required time, patience, and a willingness to be vulnerable again. The first few weeks were awkward. Whale would sometimes catch himself looking at Tiger, wondering if the same ambition that had once driven them apart still lived inside him. Tiger, too, often felt the sting of past mistakes, reminding himself of how easily he had let greed cloud his judgment. But as they worked side by side, something started to shift. They were no longer two rivals competing for success, but two partners trying to build something meaningful from the ashes of their former lives. Whale was cautious, but he was also open to forgiveness. It wasn't about forgetting what had happened, but about learning from it. Tiger had changed, he could see that. He wasn't the same reckless, self-centered person who had tried to manipulate their success for personal gain. And Tiger, in turn, saw a side of Whale that he hadn't appreciated before: his humility, his quiet strength, and his unwavering commitment to integrity. Together, they started a small online media firm focused on teaching young people the art of digital storytelling. It was a project born out of their shared passion for creativity, but also one born out of their desire to make amends. They weren't doing it for fame or fortune; those things didn't matter anymore. They were doing it because they saw the potential in the youth around them, and they wanted to help nurture that potential in a way that didn't involve taking shortcuts or sacrificing their values. As they began working with the youth, they discovered something profound: by teaching others, they were also teaching themselves. Each class, each workshop, each new story shared, reinforced the lessons they had learned the hard way: that true success was not measured by how much you could take for yourself, but by how much you could give to others. And in the end, that's what their firm became all about: growth. Not just growth in terms of business or fame, but growth in character, growth in relationships, and growth in community. They didn't rise by stepping on others. They rose by lifting others up, helping them find their voices, and teaching them to share their stories with the world. Their slogan, simple but profound, became the heartbeat of their work: we rise, not by climbing over each other, but by lifting each other. It was a reminder not only to their students but to themselves, that true strength lies in unity, not competition. And while they knew that their journey was far from over, they also knew they were on the right path, one where every step forward was a shared victory, not just a personal one. Phew, what a ride! Farm envy is real. It creeps in when you're tired, when you're broke, when life feels unfair. But what you do with that envy? That's where the real story begins. Have you ever lost a friend to jealousy? Or maybe you felt it growing in your chest before catching yourself. It can eat you up from the inside out. But there's hope. You can choose to fight it, grow stronger, and heal. Drop your story in the comments. Someone needs to hear your journey. And remember, envy doesn't just poison the friendship, it poisons the soul. Like, share, and subscribe if this story touched you. Let's spread more honesty and healing. Join the Storytime Africa family today for more inspiring tales. Thank you for joining us through to the end. See you on the next one. Bye.